You know, I think parenting is a lifelong journey,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying I've gotten through them yet either. And so it's just an always learning, always evolving. And you start out like where our grandson is. He listens to everything. You're the expert on everything. You say, "Wow, that's a cow," and "Wow, Papa," you're like you know everything. And then as they age, eventually they realize you don't know everything, or then they go to questioning and challenging, and they get a mind of their own, which is a good thing, and they're on their journey of creating their own beliefs and their own understanding of the world. And so I think that for me, the best example we've ever come across, I think, is the different stages of it. So you start out as a caretaker, and you're burping them, you're feeding them, stuff like that, and you go from caretaker to cop, stay out of the street and don't touch the fire and things like that. And then you go from there to coach, and you really start coaching them from the sidelines, and they're in the game, but you're there with them. And then after you have practice and you coach them, but ultimately you end up as a consultant. And a consultant means that you get to create fruit that they want, and they choose to come to you. And I find that a lot of parents never get out of cop mode. They keep doing that their whole life. They keep finding what's wrong their whole life. And I think that the consultant role is much more powerful because they're coming to you, they're asking you the question, which means they really want an answer.
Yeah, I agree. And the hardest part is exactly what he said, is moving from cop to coach. Where it's, I think old school parenting is you're always the cop, right? And your kid can't wait to get away from you. But if you want to have if you're being outcome focused and you want to have a great adult relationship with your children, then, as we talked about before, failure, you've got to let them fail. And that's very hard for parents. The only way you can let them fail is you have to let them choose and make choices. And either they're going to do that within your home, knowing that it's a safe place to fail and you get to have influence, or you're going to cop them, which means continually tell them what to do, not teach them how to think for themselves. And they can't wait to get away, and then they'll go have their failures away from you, where you're not able to have influence with them. But you can build a lot of trust with your kids by letting them have choices and options, and not making the mistake. I think there's two big mistakes in parenting. You either do exactly what your parents did, or you do the exact opposite of what they did. And both of those is parenting with baggage. So every parent does some great things, and here's the best thing I could ever say to anybody about your parents, no matter what age you are. They did the best they could with what they knew at the time. So pull the good things and continue those in your parenting, and don't continue the bad things. There's a very healthy middle ground, but think about creating an adult relationship with your children. And I don't mean it's be their best friend and let them do whatever they want. There's a fine line of still being, the authority and being responsible for that, but allowing your children to grow up into adults and finding that relationship, and not parenting out of your own fear of being a failure as a parent, or of your children failing, or doing what your parents did. You can never operate in fear. Let them become the best version of themselves as you're becoming. And that's another thing with parenting. If you're not continuing to grow and change and become, they are not going to want to know what you know. They will tap out and start looking for other people. So it's so important to keep creating space as a parent that your children can step into, and you can really eventually have that adult friendship that will be so valuable to you. Your kids are kids for 18 years. Well, some kids are kids a little bit longer than that these days, but they're going to be adults for much longer. And so preparing that relationship and being intentional about that has been so valuable and crucial. Not that we've done it perfectly at all, and our kids will be the first ones to say that, but we have a great life with them because we were taught how to do that here.
And there's a saying that says, don't give your kids the stuff you wish you would have had growing up. Teach them the lessons you wish you would have learned growing up. So I think we really need to stay focused on what are those lessons, how can we now teach them, and not really take that struggle, like Darci said, the failure away from them, because there's a valuable lesson that they can learn and a strength they can develop by pushing through that adversity.